Hello, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Die Party Fragged Empire. So, little heads up here. Fragged Empire is very much a beta tabletop RPG.
I might even call it an alpha, like 2.0.
Maybe. Or they sent us a beta, so we're going to call it a beta. So the game is not out yet. We've had the privilege of playing the game early, thanks to the developers giving us early access to it. Um, there was a Kickstarter a few months back, and it managed to raise. Let's take a look here. They wanted 15 grand. They ended up getting $113,000, uh, which is a silly amount of money. So there is a lot of hype surrounding this game, and well, we're gonna do our damnedest to show off as much as we can about the game. We'll probably play for until our main story completes, but this first particular episode, we're going to spend most of it talking about the lore, building characters, and essentially helping everyone come to grips with what this game is, because it does do things a little differently than what you would expect out of a tabletop RPG. So, um, let's go around and introduce the players. First up, we have Philip, who is joining us again.
What's up?
We have Caleb, and we have Graham, and Jacob, and then myself. We also have Wreckage, who would be our GM. So if there's any mistakes, you can send him the hate mail instead of me.
Yay! Infamy is better than, being unknown.
And once again, he has decided to not show his webcam, and I can only add stupid images in his portrait place instead. So now we have that lovely portrait of what I can only assume is him.
Yeah, it's a pretty good approximation. I believe the sketch artist did that one.
That's right.
After a night in New Orleans.
So, yeah, as I said, this is just going to be an introductory episode. This show is going to be bi-weekly, mostly because if there's any updates, it gives us a chance to learn them. It also gives Wreckage here a chance to build out the maps required for it, because it is a component of the game to have like battle maps and whatnot. The combat does get pretty technical with numbers and crunching and that sort of stuff. So yeah, so that's basically why we're going bi-weekly with this. But expect to have a full, complete story by the end of this. So I guess Records, do you want to introduce us to the world and what
Yeah,
Fragged Empire is
so
about?
one of the most appealing things about Fragged Empire, for me at least, is the setting and the lore. And let's bring everyone up to speed, at least on the sort of little blurb that you can get for a quick summation of the overarching plot. Fragged Empire takes place in 10,000 plus years into the future, and Earth is forgotten. Humanity is dead due to genetic erosion brought on by thousands of years of apathy. Players are one of many genetically engineered descendants created by the eugenicist Archons, whom humanity made to replace themselves, or the vengeful monster Zion, who made some of the races. A genocidal war has ravaged the known galaxy. The Zion won, killing the Archons and destroying their empire, and abandoning his army, the Nephilim, to vanish without a trace. This event threw the galaxy into 100 years of brutal tribalism, just scraping by on whatever planet they happened to be stuck on. After 100 years, the various surviving races have finally re-entered space, and no one knows what's left out in the galaxy. The four surviving races have banded together, not out of a common direction, but out of necessity. And no one knows how this sort of cobbled together, genetically engineered society is going to survive. Each race is struggling for survival, and they need to work together against their inherent genetically designed differences to succeed. And that is the basic setting in a nutshell.
Cool.
Yeah.
Um,
So with lore,
I'm
hearing
gonna.
myself. Who's? I think
Jacob.
Jacob.
I think Jacob.
You need headphones, man.
Oh, whoops. I'm gonna write down space on this paper.
Maybe with a couple space.
Space opera.
Space. Okay, next.
Yeah, it probably is a little more opera-y than
Space opera.
Yeah, man.
fi.
It's got like it's got the drama. It's oozing with the thematic nonsense that normally comes equipped with by
Brother
by,
against brother,
yeah, yeah.
child against child. The
But
death
we're
of
we're
humanity.
all humans in the end. Are you sure? I think.
Well,
we
they're
lost
all
our
very much
humanity.
not human in the end, actually.
That's true. Yeah, you got me there.
We're all living people.
Yeah, so I guess let's introduce the races next, I suppose.
Yeah.
So we've got I think we've got like 4 races or something like that.
There's 4 races.
Yeah.
Which means there will be a double up.
Mhm.
And why don't we start with corporate, which will be played by Philip. So Philip, why don't you tell us first the summary of your race, your species, its history, and then you can go in straight away to what your character concept is going to be.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I guess I'm just going to kind of paraphrase the whole corporation backstory. The basis of the corporation, or the corporates, is that they were, they're created by the Archons, just like the Kaltorans, and they were actually rejected by the Archons, though. They were considered inferior as the Archons were pursuing this perfection. They believed the Kaltorans were closer to this perfection, and the corporates were not. So I am considered the inferior race. I was formerly known as the Vergati. I don't really know the entire backstory behind that. I couldn't find much on it, but basically, I believe that the Great Zion War is the reason that I am, in a better position today. I believe that the war allowed to break the bonds of being the the inferior child of the Archons. And yeah, I'm called the corporate race because I am like the epitome of capitalism. I believe in business. I believe in just making money and being efficient and organized. And by technicality, I'm not. The corporates aren't really like a culture as much as they're a culture for sure, but they're not a. Trying to think of how to explain it. Basically, I'm a massive I'm called the corporation because I'm just a gigantic entity of smaller businesses that work together to further ourselves. So I don't really exist as an empire.
Yeah, the corporate is also responsible. They were the first ones back into space after the 100 years of tribalism.
Yes, I remember reading that.
And they're the ones who have helped to organize this rocky truce between the 4 surviving species.
Yeah. To go a little further, my homeworld is known as Alabaster. After the Great War, when my race discovered space travel again, I moved on and I found a great rare gas giant, which it was rich in helium-3 if I remember correctly from my reading, and it was also full of a whole bunch of other resources. So basically, what I did was not me myself, but my race did was we built a bunch of space stations around this rare gas giant, and we just farmed it for materials and started trying to make money. Yeah, I mean, that's the gist. I don't know if you want me to go into the culture or just kind of save that for a little later or what.
That's a good place to segue into your own character concept.
Cool. So I like to play my characters a little interesting. I like to always leave secrets, some of which I will share with the DM behind the scenes, but not the viewers or the other players that they don't know everything about me. My name is Varian Green, though, as I like to be called. My real last name is not known. All you really know is that I was part of a successful family within the race of the corporates. But I've kind of I pretty much found myself in a position where I wanted to make my own way, be it legally or illegally. I'm pretty open to it as long as I'm being organized, making money. I got a good crew together. I'm gonna play like a pretty strict kind of mindset. I don't take any bullshit as my character. The way he looks, basically, maybe we can upload or tell you guys where to find the way these characters look in general, the way the book portrays them. But I look similar to the way they portray them in the book. The biggest difference is that he has a very unique style. He wears obviously a black coat and black pants, but he has a pinstripe on the his right side of the coat. It's a double pinstripe that runs down the coat and it matches his pants. He wears a green glove on his left hand, and he also wears a green vest with a black shirt underneath, which he keeps unbuttoned, but not in like a disheveled way. It's a very managed, very, very stylish way.
Snazzy.
Yeah, so and that's the one thing with the corporates is they like to be snazzy. They like to make themselves look successful, even if I'm not successful, because currently I'm trying to make my own way. So
even
I'll
the poorest
definitely reveal
corporate will have the most expensive suit of clothing that is on offer.
Exactly. And I'm kind of going to be playing a corporate starting with nothing. Like I said, I have a rich background that you guys don't know too much about. All you know is that I have a rich background, but I'm not trying to abuse it. I'm like very set on like finding my own way and finding my own niche in the world. So that's kind of the character idea I have in mind.
By
truly
rich,
will
you
be
mean
starting
wealthy,
with
right?
nothing.
Yeah, wealthy, but rich in like not just monetary means, but in having control over other people. Maybe having a small fleet or owning my own business, that kind of thing. So not just monetary means, but also just rich as a person. In power and having influence.
What
Before
about
the
rich in
campaign's over.
personality?
Yeah, before the campaign's over, you'll go on a journey, and your character will then pursue spiritual richness.
Yeah, I'll worry
A
about
wealth
that after
of
I make lots of money.
internal spirit.
Yeah.
That
I believe in the
segues into this.
almighty Arcane.
The second race of the four surviving races, which is the Kaltorans, played by our very own Graham Warden. Graham, are you ready to give us a summation of your character's your species backstory, and then your character concept?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because, well, number one, Kaltorans have 4 ears. Is that relevant?
Yeah, they've got. And
Kaltorans have-
since we don't have pictures up on the stream, I assume
No, nothing of the sort right now.
the Kaltorans are cat-like, and their ears are one right over the other.
Yeah.
Basically, two sets of cat ears on top of each other.
They are like cats. They are like quick and lithe, I guess is a good word for it. They hold the memories of all of their ancestors genetically. So I suppose they can, like Assassin's Creed style, go back in time.
Yeah,
Or-
they don't need the.
Basically. Yeah, they don't need the animus though.
Yeah.
Anyway, everything revolves around family for a Kaltoran. They all have weapons, is what I'm reading here. They're like they were the favored of the Archons. Is that right?
Yeah, super special.
Super special. They terraformed their planet to ruin. They dug under the Earth's under the crust and lived underground. Eventually,
In context, because of the war.
yeah, Great Zion War.
They
Excuse me.
destroyed the surface so that there would be nothing for the Nephilim to take hold of.
Sure. Okay.
And lived underground.
That's good. Where they resorted to cannibalism and bad stuff. There was a bad scene there, so all Kaltorans, I imagine, have these kind of haunted memories of that time.
Yeah, and really, really, when you get into it, the ones who survived to pass on their genetic memories were the ones who ate other Kaltorans. So pretty much, you all have memories of being a cannibal.
That was bad news bears.
Pleasant memories.
Yeah.
The important question that comes to mind then, Graham, is do you remember liking it?
Well,
It's your character, so whether or not your particular ancestor enjoyed it is up to you.
Um, they were probably curious, but no.
Yeah. So the high age of Kaltoran philosophy and sort of Buddhist monkism on their paradise planet was brought to a screeching halt by the Great War, and they ended up eating people. So yeah, a huge fall from grace there. But 100 years later, you're back in space. You're no longer eating each other, and your character Graham does what and is what?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as like, do we have any information about where we are? Like, are we on like a ship or something?
Yeah, so I try to give you this information ahead of time. You guys, all of your characters should have a reason to be on a transport ship.
Oh yeah.
That is traveling on the outer edges of the sort of the system.
Head of security.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to do that. You can be security on the transport ship.
I do remember that.
Remember, you're a lowbie, so maybe you wouldn't necessarily be head of security.
What does that mean?
we can suss that out later.
Level
But is there
2.
anything else to the character?
Yeah, as
No.
a small side note, the only reason I'm on this transport ship is solely because I'm just a traveling businessman, just trying to make my way.
All right, that's fine. We'll get to that. We'll get to more context-sensitive stuff as we head out of the character phase. But Graham, did you want to say anything else about your character concept?
Yeah. He's got very dark black hair and he's got dreads
Okay. Yeah. Good.
that are done in like a giant. You know those giant ponytails?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they're
Like that.
weird, man.
Dreads.
Not gonna lie. Whenever I see those in real life, I'm like, yeah.
I think I always thought it looked cool.
Well, the only picture we have of Kaltorans in the book, they have the dreads.
Yeah, they
so
do have
I think
dreads,
he's very reasonably dreading it up.
Yeah.
And he carries a sword
Okay.
because he's awesome and he's really fast. His name's Cannon,
Cannon. That's a cool name. Good
Yeah.
job.
and he's middle aged, or he's like lower middle aged for a Kaltoran, like 54. I kind of guess is kind of lower middle age.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what their lifespan is.
It actually
100
does say. Let me check
100
real quick. Yeah, the average lifespan is 120 years.
So at 100, yeah. So plus 20 years to be middle aged.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But anyway, so maybe he's not head of security, but he is security.
he's security. All right, middle aged, level 2. Okay. Yeah, and that brings us swimmingly into the third race, the Legion. Caleb will be playing our Legion in this adventure. Why don't you tell me all about your species, history?
Okay. Well, first I'll go into the physical characteristics.
Okay, sure.
The Legion are a large race. They average from 7.5 to 8 feet tall. Their builds are large and muscular, and they have scaled lizard-like skin. They were created by the Archons to be great warriors, but without the qualities that would help sustain society. For the last 100 years, they've struggled to try to live as a self-sustained society. But since making contact with the other races, many Legion have decided to head out on their own and work as mercenaries and enforcers instead. Despite the time since the war, they still hold a heavy grudge against the Nephilim, but they treat the Kaltorans as natural comrades, despite their differing natures. That's about all I got.
All right. Would you? Well, I'll speak a little bit to the context of the Legion. The Legion were the Archon's response to the Zion War. The Zion showed up with the Nephilim, who were super good at war, and the Kaltorans and the corporate were not equipped at all. So they made the Legion, and they were quite capable of fighting the Nephilim, but they weren't able to beat the Nephilim. They could only fight them to stalemate, so they got sort of trapped on their home world. And that was basically the end of the war. The last Archon died in that context, and then the Zion left, and the war ended.
Their
Leaving
homeworld is called Cerberus, by the way.
Cerberus, very cool name. Leaving a society totally designed to make war, without, bakers, for example. It's a huge honor in Legion society to take on one of those mundane tasks, like raising a family or being a shoemaker or something, because everyone understands that genetically you don't want to. So if you are doing it, you're a cool guy.
Wow, that's fucking awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've got this super reverence for people who are willing to not be soldiers, since they're so programmed to be soldiers. And which also leads to this, like, every Legion was born by parents chose not to be soldiers, so I have to have a huge amount of respect for my mom and dad, because they are, but in essence, that context. Why don't you tell me about your character concept, Caleb?
My character is very young. He's I think 19 years old or so. He's one of those people who has decided to go out on his own and work as a mercenary for the corporation. That's why he's on the ship. Unlike the corporation, though, his outfit's not flashy at all. His equipment and outfit are designed to do exactly what he needs them to do and nothing more. And they don't really look like much, but they work.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Gonna punch some faces, or shoot them, or stab them, or disintegrate them, or all of the above. That brings us to the final race, the murderous and highly efficient and highly amazing Nephilim, which will be played by Dave, because he has an ego himself, naturally gravitating to the arrogant Vulcan-like race. Why don't you tell us about the backstory of the Nephilim and your character concept?
Sure. So the Nephilim are pretty much designed by the opposing faction to the Archons, the Zion. And they were pretty much designed to wage war on them. So they're basically the first, I'm gonna call them batch of Nephilims, known as the Alphas. They were these huge, towering, imposing monstrosities that basically went to war, and they were designed to be efficient and highly intelligent killers. And that's basically what they are. They came across and they decimated basically everything in their path, until they met the end. What was the end of the war? You're gonna have to remind me on that.
So the end of the war, the Zion, whose entire purpose is to murder all of the Archons, succeeds. The last Archon dies. There's all of these races are still fighting and surviving, but with the last Archon dead, the Zion, who is a single entity, by the way, in case there's any confusion, he up and vanishes. He doesn't give the Nephilim any, like, stand down orders or any keep fighting orders or any orders at all. With the Archon dead, he disappears.
Yeah.
And so the war ends in a sort of like, okay, we'll keep fighting because maybe he was just out to get milk. And oh shit, we're losing all, like, we're running out of resources fighting the Legion to a stalemate. Like, I guess, do you want to stop fighting, Legion? And Legion's like, we're dying, please. And so everyone stops fighting just because the Zion leaves, and they just...
Daddy Zion went out for a packet of cigarettes and never came back.
Daddy Zion went out for a packet of cigarettes and never came back.
Yeah.
And then there's the Nephilim, equally designed for pretty much only war, find themselves struggling to get by as well.
Yeah, though they are doing it a little better than probably the Legion is, because so basically there are three sort of subcultures, or maybe not even cultures, but like sort of genetic races within the Nephilim themselves. The first one is the Alphas, which is the first sort of initial breed that are designed to murder, whatnot. and their direct pure-blooded descendants, which I will be playing, is also sort of monstrosity related in terms of how they look and how they act, and the way that they treat other people. The next is the betas, which is like the most populated subculture of the Nephilim, and the betas are basically they're sort of like diverse in terms of way they look, due to how the pure-bloodedness of the alphas is sort of draining, I guess you could call it, or being like
It's like
bred out.
mutts.
Yeah,
It's like you have pure breeds as alphas, and then they stop really caring because they're not in a war, and then they get a bunch of mutts. Is essentially what the betas are.
yeah, and they make up the biggest bulk of the Nephilim. So whenever you see Nephilim, that's probably what you're looking at. The third is the Gammas, and they are almost infant, like Nephilims, but they are born in to be full adults. And they are genetically engineered to be very similar looking to the other races. And their entire purpose is to sort of alleviate some of the tension between the races by sort of commingling and coexisting with them. So in terms of like the Nephilim, they're doing the things they can to sort of ingrain themselves into the culture, even though after the war there's still a lot of that hatred there for them. So a lot of the races hate the Nephilim, but they're doing things to alleviate that process, that tension, I guess. As I said earlier, though, I'll be playing an alpha, not a original alpha, but like a descendant of the alpha. So he's still a purebred alpha. His name is Hall's Talos. And he is very much an imposing looking Nephilim. We're talking like what did we call the leg structure that I asked?
Hyperextended.
Yeah, so he's
You
got
have
hyper
backwards knees.
Yeah, he's got backwards knees. He's incredibly tall, almost like, and he's incredibly thin as well. So think sort of Slender Man with like knees and whatnot that act like a dog, and you've basically got the sort of build of Halls.
Is your guy walking on all fours or just?
No, he's walking on two legs. So
Okay. Okay.
That's probably why he's so tall. He only has like he's very humanoid in the regard that he has two legs and two arms. But in terms of like his body structure, it's kind of like imagine like a rib cage, and then it goes down to like sort of nothing underneath it. So he's very slender in that regard.
I sort of got it in mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much almost like a Great Dane standing up or something, or
yeah, it's very much
Greyhound.
You pretty much got spot on there. He also is a very highly intellectual person. He is very well regarded within the scientific community of the Nephilims, and because of that, he's got this obsession with bioengineering and surgery. So he is known as a doctor on his home planet.
Okay.
And a lot of his work goes into like sort of incorporating mechanical substances within within like living flesh. So his whole guess is to like sort of append useful things to things that by design just I'm trying to find the word here for that, but yeah,
Graft.
Was that, sorry?
Are you looking for the word graft? Is what Graham
Yeah,
suggested?
maybe. Yeah, so he grafts a lot of stuff onto things. And,
There you go. That's a pretty good word for that then.
Yeah. So basically, if you ever need a robotic eye, I'm your dude. I'm
All
your
right.
dude.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to do one more thing now. We're going to briefly run through the entire history real quick. And then we've got the special treat of one of our players. You may have noticed there are 4 races and we have 5 players. So one of us is undecided yet on what they're going to play. And it's going to be sort of like a choose your destiny young hero type thing. And we're going to lead Jacob into the future. so he can carry the ring to Mordor and destroy the flood by destroying their food, so that the dark side doesn't. Anyway,
Best fan fiction ever. Love it.
so in Fragged Empire,
I'd read it.
what basically happens is humanity, they reach a sort of technological singularity, not the kind, if you follow futurology, that you might expect. They basically get to a point where they're super great at electronic stuff. They're really great at technology. They lay out these things called ley lines, which presumably help you travel faster, but the system is still not clarified that. And then they spread out into this little sector of space where you play the game, and they just sort of stop because things are perfect. And they don't really do anything. They don't improve themselves. I imagine it's just 24 hours of porn every day
It's
for
like stagnation.
2,000 years, and they don't get sick anymore, so they stop practicing medicine, and then suddenly, all of a sudden, they're getting all these genetic diseases because they don't even care anymore. So the concept is apathy destroys humanity after we get to sort of a perfect state. And just before humanity dies out, they create the Archons, which are a themselves genetically engineered race. And it sort of glosses over this. It's not really clear whether or not humanity expected the Archons to save humanity or to replace humanity, but the Archons definitely chose not to save humanity, so humanity dies out. And with when sort of in the context that they're created, our creators died to genetic apathy, we should pursue genetic perfection. That's sort of what happens with the Archons. So they start, cranking out species. Like a redneck teenage girl. They're just cranking them out. And
God damn it! What?
they're trying to find the perfect race, but they neglect to agree on what perfect even means. And that becomes a huge problem later on when they make the corporate, and they make the Kaltorans, and then they make the Zions. They make 12 Zions, and the Zions are awesome at everything, but somehow that's not perfect for like half of the Archons. Half the Archons are like, that's not perfect, and the other half is like, they do everything amazing. Why aren't they perfect? And that results in a sort of murdering of 11 of the 12 Zions. The 12th Zion, of course, gets away, as you would expect. Otherwise, where would the story be? That Zion returns, like, not even 10 years later or something, with the Nephilim. And the Nephilim are amazing, and they have these living biological ships that they're sort of integrated with, and they blow everyone out of the sky, essentially. The war is very bad. The Archons were not prepared for war in any way. They start losing the war. Things like the Kaltoran's homeworld happens. They make they make the Legion, and their Legion is effective at least at holding them on their own planet, but they're still losing and they're still dying out. So then they're like, oh, humanity, they were really good at electronics. They left all of these super amazing robots that can learn and adapt and stuff. Why don't we stick some weapons on those things and see if they can help? So they stick some weapons on those things and see if they can help. But they're geneticists, and they've not dealt with electronic technology almost at all for their entire reign. And these mechanoids go out of control. Of course they do, and become yet another force against essentially everyone. The mechanoids kill all sentient life for some reason now. And that, along with the Nephilim and the Zion, facilitate the death of the Archons, at which point the Zion disappears, leaving all of the races behind. The Legion and the Nephilim keep fighting until they're out of resources to do so. And the Nephilim pick a planet, the Kaltoran's old homeworld, crash their super amazing biological ships on the surface, start building up on them. And then 100 years of the Legion trying to struggle to get by, the Kaltorans underground eating each other, the corporate, I don't know, throwing wild parties. It doesn't really specify what they do for 100 years. But then the corporate of the first one's back into space, a couple years ago now in the setting. It would be, not even, 10 maybe years ago. And they start making contact with other races. All the races start going back into space and integrating because they're not really doing well. They've all been largely engineered for specific things. Kaltorans are philosophers, corporate or business people, Legion are warriors, and Nephilim are also warriors, but with science instead of fighting with fists, sort of. So none of them are really equipped to, say, farm by themselves. The Kaltorans are the ones that actually provide most of the food for everybody. So that brings us to now. Mechanoids sort of shut off in those 100 years that no one was in space because they had no one to kill. They're just switching back on now because there are people to kill. And yeah, that's the big galaxy. Make your way in it. Survive. You got an opportunity to carve your own niche. Take over everything. We will be playing. There are game variants in the system that basically determine starting resources, the way that experience is handed out, etc. We're going to be playing the survival variant, which is recommended for horror and discovery and those sorts of game types. It'll be clear when we play the first session why it's survival, but for now, what you guys know is that you're all characters on a transport ship that is in the outer edge of space, likely transporting people to maybe a new colony or a distant mining facility or something on the edge of currently known or rediscovered, rather, space. And with all of that, and knowing what our current skill sets are in the group, and what the races are and do and everything, Jacob, you're 10 years old. It's time to choose your Pokemon.
Fire.
You either got Earth or Wind, Fire, Ice, Spirit, Heart, Captain Planet. What race are you gonna be? What do you think's missing from the group? Maybe in skills, or what do you have a good story concept for?
Well, currently, just my concept is probably going to remain the same either way. But for race, currently I'm signed between Kaltoran and Corporation. The other two never seemed to appeal to me much when I read through them.
Okay, that's certainly fair. So I guess we could go at this. You could say your concept, and I could see which one is more plausible lore-wise. Or you could choose Kaltoran because they're furries, and you're into that sort of thing.
Hey, wait, what?
Them double ears, man. Them double ears.
They can do umlauts. Star Trek reference. Bonus points to me. Female. Prophet.
I don't understand
Old breast
any of that.
latinum.
Yeah, you're just saying words now.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I picked up on the Robin Hood earlier, but I'm not picking up on this.
Really, no one in this entire sci-fi game has watched Star Trek.
No, I've watched Star Trek. I come for the mumbo jumbo science, but I don't stay for the story.
So the Ferengi are the corporation of Star Trek. They're ultra capitalist, and they got these crazy big ears. And it comes up multiple times in the series that ear massage is like a BJ for Ferengi, and it's called umlauts. That was the reference I just made. Everyone's caught up now. We can move on with our lives. So do you want to be a kitty, or do you want to be a Ferengi?
Well, screw it. Let's be Kaltoran.
All right, we got two cat peoples.
Wow.
Careful,
don't eat each other, man. Like, seriously.
No, the interesting thing is that you guys could share a memory if you share an ancestor. Like how strange is that? Like, I could probably do an entire thing just on Kaltorans. They are by far the most interesting just by saying on page that they have genetic memory. Like, you can do so much with that.
I imagine because of those hardships and stuff, there's a limited gene pool, so I think we would have to share memory at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, totally. At some point, you shared I mean, it may not be until all the way back in the golden age. when
I got it.
Philosophy
It's
and stuff.
perfect. They shared a memory, and they also shared a body that they ate.
Oh, cannibalism.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
boy.
Jacob, what is your character's concept then? Now that we've decided that you're a two-eared cat furry person,
Four-eared.
four-eared, two-eared on each side is what
Yeah.
I meant.
Double there.
Double.
All right, so let me try to recall everybody. Medical,
Yep.
freaky, weird, backwards knee bending medical.
Mm-hmm.
Nephilim.
Nephilim.
Right.
Mercenary.
Legion. Big.
Yep.
Simian-looking, but scale-like skin.
Yes. Almost like I'm
Hey,
almost want to say it's like
kind
the
of
thing.
Bouncer-esque character, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's almost like the thing. Kind of.
And we got
Almost.
Almost.
Basically somebody who's like being basically coming from some sort of wealth. Is almost trying to make his own way in the world.
corporate money.
And
Ching ching.
if I recall correctly, the other Kaltoran would be something involving basically almost a bodyguard.
He's security on the ship
Security.
itself.
Yes, that. All right.
So
All
yep,
right.
you've got a functioning short-term memory. Congratulations. You
Well,
don't
hey.
have a crippling brain tumor, maybe.
To be fair, I am legitimately very bad at memory, so I needed to go through that to make sure I didn't fuck up.
Okay, you didn't fuck up yet.
Oh, I'm about
But
to
all
fuck
eyes
up.
are on you.
So in terms
Tell
of
us,
like
tell us your concept.
yeah, if you want help, I mean like we don't have a lot of range characters by the sound of it.
Bard.
Doesn't sound like you have a mechanic either.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bard.
other than sort of maybe the Nephilim being like, I can mess around with it.
Like if it's bio, fucking got
That's
it
a good
down,
idea.
man.
Well, my character is one of his skills is mechanics.
Okay, so you're good at
so-
mechanics. That's something to mention.
I mean, like Kaltorans, as part of their race, they're like bred to be mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Plus,
Yeah.
the
No, it's-
Kaltorans
well-
also get like the easiest untrained. Like in terms of untrained skills, they have an easier time of passing them than any other race.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because every other race gets a -2 to any untrained skill, but the the Kaltorans get a -1, which is like
Because
really
memories.
good. Yeah. So
I guess that would then be the mechanical explanation of their genetic memory.
Yeah.
Somewhere in their memory, they
Yeah.
were once trained in all tasks anyway.
Yeah.
So
I'm just thinking of Sly Cooper right now.
So maybe
That's all
maybe
good.
something in electronics, maybe something in programming.
Ship maintenance.
Like
I
there's,
mean,
there's
we're
a
doing
lot.
character creation, and I think that'll determine all our skills. So just go with
Yeah.
like you have a general idea of how you want to play your character.
Yeah.
I was almost thinking of maybe something like a scientist. Like I know my character basically obviously I have a wide range of memories, but also surprisingly large number of memories of people who in the past. Stupid dog.
He wants your
Dog, man. All right.
stay focused. The dog
Yeah,
is
sorry,
there,
sorry.
but we can't do anything about it. So
Yeah, sorry. Basically, a surprisingly large number of memories of people who, in the past, maybe might have been something related to research or more technological advancement, for instance. Not so much on anybody that sort of was involved in any fighting.
Hmm.
Like obviously, there's the survivors of the war, so he will have memories of them. But
Uh-huh.
beyond that, it's almost like it's almost like that's not much in that department for him.
So you want to be a mechanical scientist, whereas our Nephilim is a biological scientist,
Yes.
or electronic scientist, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Basically.
that's fine.
Things.
We've got two flavors of scientist, and that's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
It'll be shockingly appropriate when we get to the actual story. Now, my expertise is in lore. My expertise as the GM, or when I say expertise, I mean we had 3 days to study this not page-numbered PDF. So I focused on lore because I had to develop a story. But Dave, thankfully, has at least a passable understanding of the system. So Dave, would you like to somewhat lead the process of actually statting out these characters now?
Absolutely. I've made like 2 now, so I got it down.
Awesome. Perfect.
So everyone got your character sheets open?
Yep.
All right. So first thing you need to do, you need to put. We're starting at level 2, right, GM? Are you happy with that, or you want to start higher?
Okay, so let's actually let's go up to the page number, the thing. There's game variants.
Yeah. So I'm looking at
It says it
survival now.
starts-
It starts at level 2. So
Yep. So everything that says about survival is accurate.
okay.
what's
So that's what we're gonna
what
roll
we're
with.
Go with. Yep.
Very good. Interesting.
All right.
Wow. You get a lot of... Wow, okay. So basically what's going to happen is, in this game, we're going to come in with... you're going to come in with very little gear, but the gear that you have is going to be highly customized, if that makes any sense.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is. So you've got no resources and influence to actually accommodate weapons yet. We will give that out sooner than is typically... you're level 2, right? So the way that it works, by the way, we should really explain this, Dave, or at least correct me if I get anything wrong, because I'm about to jump headlong into this.
Okay.
In this system, you have 2 types of resources. One of them is called resources, and the other one is called influence.
Yeah.
But you can only call them both resources. However many you have of those is how you're allowed to have equipment and spaceships. Equipment is resources, and spaceships is influence. So, for example, if I have 5 resources, I can have a 3-resource gun and a 2-resource body armor.
Correct. Yeah.
If I drop that gun down a chasm, I don't lose those 3 resources. They become unallocated.
Yeah.
So now, having dropped that gun down a chasm, I can segue into having a 3-dot armor and a 2-dot gun, because I can now reallocate those resources. And you can reallocate them without dropping things down chasms if you want.
Yeah,
This is not
so
a
the
chasm.
way that you would do that is if you dropped a 3 resource point gun down a chasm and it's completely gone or destroyed, then you wanted to add another point to your armor, you would need to spend spare time points to upgrade your armor, and then you would allocate the other 2 points to a new gun that you would say either purchase with... Because in this game, there is no sort of money, as per se. So, for example, every character, regardless of how wealthy or unwealthy they are, they can get access to the same gear. And the way that it works in the game is that you spend your resource points getting it. How you describe you get it, though, is the real key here. So basically,
Philip would buy it, and someone else would have... Philip would buy it, and you, Dave, would develop it.
yeah,
And Graham would sniff it out because he has a cat nose. I'm kidding, that's not. But
So-
that's the point.
yeah. So like you
Finds it
can
in
like
his kitty litter.
see, for example, you can any weapons you find on an enemy, you can use for the session, but it doesn't carry over to the next session, if that makes any sense. So you need to basically get resources in order for you to have functioning gear that
In
persists.
spare
over-
time
Yeah.
in this system is they've mechanized what you do in downtime. Essentially, there's a series
Okay.
of roles, and you have to spend. So spare time is sort of like I have 4 spare time, therefore I have, 8 hours of free time in a day, or something arbitrary like that.
Mhm.
It's basically mechanizing what you do in your downtime, such that all of these things, reallocating resources, buying a spaceship. There's also a research mechanic where you actually publish research papers if you're a scientist,
Mhm.
which is super fascinating, and that increases your influence.
Yeah, and it
Sure.
goes really deep in that too. Like you can do stuff
So-
like you can research on like like other races and stuff like that, and your research could like go to particular people, but then you would lose respect in other races. It's fucking fascinating, man. There is so
Yeah,
much cool stuff
it's
in there.
they're doing a lot of interesting things in the system. So I'm very excited to beat my head against battle maps just to do all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
So with that said, the survival variant, if I understand correctly, you start with 0 resources and influence, and it's basically saying that certain types of modification also cost more. the idea, you also get -1 fate point, and there are fate points in this game, which, as in many games, allow you to reroll. But in this game,
They also save you from death as well.
right. So you have two. For example, you typically have 2 fate points, and that means you have 2 fate points every session. You sort of have 2 slots that fill up with fate points every session, and then you spend them. You can save yourself from death by getting rid of a slot. So it's gone forever. But in survival, you already only have 1 fate point. You typically have 2.
Except for the cat people, because they have 3.
Right, so you would have 2 then.
Yeah.
And corporation usually only has 1, so they don't have any.
Yeah, good job,
Wow.
Philip. You're going to die.
Not gonna die. I'm gonna throw my men in front of me.
Okay, well, that's up to you to not die then. There's big talk.
It's also worth pointing out influence. When you get a ship, you combine everyone's influence together.
You can. You
Yeah.
don't have to. Obviously, you get a better ship if you do that. But, for example, the system lets Caleb, if he was so inclined, have his own ship that just follows the other ship.
Yeah.
Even though it can only be a shitty, 2-dot ship instead of a amazing 7-dot ship or whatever.
Or you can do stuff like you can get a big ship with everyone's influence and then take 3 of the influence out of that pool and put in like a fighter to have inside of the ship as well. It's like you can do some really cool stuff with that sort of thing. But,
yeah, they've got a really interesting system that I can't wait to eventually understand. In the survival variant, you also have to collect food and water with spare time points.
Interesting. That is really interesting.
Spare time rolls have to go to sustaining yourselves. It doesn't clarify that, and that may not yet be in the book, as several things that are referenced to aren't. But I am going to keep that. If I have to wing it myself, I will.
I like that. Yeah.
So, and it basically, then the other stuff it talks about is that certain things that typically take certain amounts of spare time success take more, is essentially what ends up happening.
I just read about the death in survival. That is shockingly different.
Yeah, it's so typically you have to go to -5 in an attribute to experience the sort of the death process, which is a series of rolls, and you can potentially save yourself and healing and bleeding, etc. In survival, it's only -2 to an attribute.
Ooh.
This will greatly favor classes who spread their points out evenly.
If you want to live,
Yeah.
don't specialize. But that's true in this system anyway, because we haven't gone over it yet, but damage to attributes is random. So you're only ever as strong as your weakest attribute if you happen to be unlucky in rolls.
Yeah.
Oh.
So critical damage goes through your health, sort of. You have a health, which is called endurance, and that bleeds out to normal damage. Critical goes straight to attributes, and when your health is 0, damage starts going to attributes. So that's how that works. But when you would take attribute damage, there are 6 attributes, and you roll a 1d6 to determine which attribute gets hit. And then there are certain abilities that let you, as the attacker, help to determine which ability gets hit.
Mm-hmm.
So you can focus down someone's only 2 attribute.
Yeah. And when you kill an NPC, it only goes to 0 rather than to -2. So we have the advantage there of being exceptionally gifted, is the way the book puts it. So, yeah. So, do you want to start? Shall we start rolling up these characters then?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, let's see here. I just gotta get to the right page.
Yeah,
Alright,
what page should we be on to kind of follow along with you, so that I'm not?
So the page is 31 in the book if you're reading on a PDF.
Okay, cool.
So the first step is that we need to set our character level to level 2, and then you need to also put in your racial trait next to it as well. There's a drop-down menu there. So just pick the race that you are. And now you need to set your max resources to 0, and your max influence to 0 as well. Though for some reason the thing doesn't let us do that, so we're gonna have to put -2 in there.
I'm going to I'm going to say, you guys wanted to have particular equipment. You can have it, you just won't have it for very long. You can start with it, but then you're not going to have it anymore. But it'll let you be cool for the first 5 minutes of the game.
Okay.
So now so make sure you got -2 in each of your resources and influence, so it sits at 0. Next, we're going to assign our attribute points. Now, at level 2, you have you can have. Sorry, it doesn't matter what level you are, but you have a total of 18 points you can put into any attribute.
Not survival. Survival, you have 14.
Does it actually say that?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess we have 14. So you can have a max of 5 in each of the classes. You can't go any higher than that. You can go to 0. I wouldn't suggest it, but you can go to 0 if you wanted to. So that's what we're going to do right now. So, for example, my guy has a focus on intelligence. And just so you know, whatever number of points you put into a particular skill, be that the attribute points, be that the everyday skills or the combat skills you have, that is the level of traits that you can get from that particular stuff. So at level 2, you get your traits from your race, which we'll go over in a minute, and then you get one choice of additional trait that you can pick. I would highly suggest picking from the pool that you have the highest attribute point in, simply because the skills and whatnot, they will go up and down and whatnot based on your gear and how well you do and whatnot. So you want to apply these traits to the highest level 1 so that you have access to the most traits. So, for example, I've got 5 points in intelligence, so I would get traits 1 through 5 that I can pick from in the traits screen.
Is there a list of traits? And
There
what they
is.
do?
It's page 167 in the sheet, I believe.
Okay.
It starts at
164.
it starts at 168 for the attribute traits.
Really? Oh yeah, you're right. Never mind. Ignore me.
So as you can see here, it's got the name of the trait, and then it's also got the requirements to meet the trait. So, for example, if we're looking at strength, if you wanted to be old, it would give you 1 leadership and 1 survival point. It would also give you 4 to maximum influence, which is the amount of influence you can have in total. That'll go up every time you level. But for now, for example, you can start off with a higher possible pool of influence than any other character. And then you would also gain 2 influence. So, for example, this right here will help you select stuff. So, resources might actually give you... traits might actually give you resources at the start of the game, which would be incredible, especially considering we have 0 resources to pull with. So if you get...
let me specify that for survival, max resources and influence is not what's 0. Your max is normal, but you start with 0 of each. Yeah,
so in the game, you will be able to have points where you can, like, maybe as a reward, you can choose between, hey, I'm going to help these guys out, and then I get influence with this particular faction of people, which would maybe give me something else later on. Or you can say, no, give me those resources, and then they'll give you, a pile of wood or something like that. But that counts as a resource point that you can then use to get whatever you want from it. It's kind of weird how that works, but that's how it works.
It's just sort of it allows me to customize your reward experience as a GM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you mean that in total our resources are 0, or do we still get the
No. You have a pool.
Level 2.
You have a pool of resources, so you have a total of 2 that you can get at any time right now.
Okay.
Before.
So that's to say, it's like having empty boxes. You have empty boxes where resources and influence can go, but in a survival game, instead of starting with some, you start with none, and you have to earn that through the things that you do in the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you have resources, that's when you get those permanent weapons that you really want. Otherwise, you're just scrounging for weapons on the ground and whatnot that will literally only lasts you the session unless stated otherwise by the GM.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, if you find, like, a rifle on a guy, chances are it's worn and used, and it will only have a limited amount of ammo, and it'll probably break at the end of the session. But you can use it for that session, but it will just...
Yeah, the explanation of resource allocation is not in its existing, but in its upkeep.
Yeah.
It takes 3... So a better gun takes more resources to take care of. So if you don't have the resources, you can have the weapon, but you're not going to be able to take care of it properly. It'll break down at some point, which is, described as in between sessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, each of these traits will potentially give you a starting resource that you can use. Like, for example, the strength one gives you 2 influence, which, depending on how you want to use it, will be able to give you bonuses at the start of the game. However, that is a level 1 trait. In order to get that, you need at least 2 points in strength, and you need to do it at character creation. So the way that traits work in the game is once you've picked a trait, you can't unpick it, and you can't swap it for something else. So if you take a look at the attribute points here on your character sheet, see how there's only 1 drop box for each of these traits here? Once you've picked a trait for that particular thing, that's it. You can't pick any other traits. So if you, for example, I have 5 points in intelligence, right? So if I pick something less than 5 points, then I'm using that trait pool for intelligence, and I can't pick something higher later.
There was a video on his YouTube account that said something about using spare time points to swap traits.
Oh, well, that makes sense, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can use spare time points to change your... You can change everything about your character. You can even swap attributes, but it takes spare time points, and you have to succeed at those rolls.
That would be a pretty high
justify
DC, wouldn't it?
You have to justify it. So he gives an example in the book, I think, maybe in one of his videos, where the Legionnaire, the Legion guy, no longer wants to use long-range weaponry or whatever, and he's got a long-range weaponry trait. And he notices that they've been encountering a lot of malfunctioning computers that no one was capable of handling. So he uses his spare time roll to drop the range trait and to grab a book on programming, and he gains the capacity to hack things.
Interesting.
So that was one of the examples in the book.
It makes a lot of sense, I guess, when you think about it. I mean, spare time can be used for anything, really, so...
Yeah, so this system is just, it's been like, hey, there's such a thing as spare time, especially in the life-sucking void of space.
Yeah.
There's a lot of travel time and a lot of downtime, so surely we should
Yep.
do something with that.
So spare time has a DC check on it, and it's something to think about. Like, my intelligence, if I pick a trait, will give me extra spare time rolls and give me extra points in spare time. So basically, for me to pass a spare time check is a lot easier because I have the traits for it. But it also means that I've put a lot of points into intelligence because it's a level 5 trait for intelligence.
Right, and for example, it makes sense. A smart person can allocate their time better.
Correct, yeah. So that's basically how it works. So the attributes, I'll go through the list now. Let me just find the page for that. So that basically it doesn't work the way that you think it works. For example, a melee character, the best trait for you is actually reflex rather than strength. Simply because that's how the game actually rolls when it comes to skill. So one thing that you can do if you want to be focused on combat, and I would highly suggest doing this, is scrolling down your character sheet down to page page 3, and down the very bottom you will see the actions you can take in combat. Now, tactical actions is one thing, range action is another, and then they have melee action. So if you're going to be melee, a normal strike is your hit die plus your reflex plus your rate of fire. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that means that you can move at -2 of your total movement speed, and then your die to hit is based on whatever your reflex is and your rate of fire of your particular weapon that you have now. So if you have like a very fast striking sword, for example, then you would get an extra d6 when you roll. but normally a weapon would have one rate of fire. So a submachine gun, for example, if you expend the use of extra ammo, you can add extra die to your roll in order to hit more frequently, which is the rate of fire. So rate of fire is incredibly useful. But right here, this will give you the idea of what type of skills you need to put into if you want to be effective at melee. For example, a block is your hit die plus perception plus focus, for example. Impair is reflex and strength, and escape is reflex and strength as well. Or escape is like basically someone's grappling you and you want to get out of their grip, for example. So range characters, their most important skills are what is it? It's perception for like hit, and I believe focus is for when you want to do like a long range shot. So the way that combat works in range combat is that you have up to particular feats. So close range, you don't take any negatives. A longer range, you take -2, and then even further, you take another -2 on top of that. So if you want to be a sniper, for example, you're going to need a lot of points into focus, simply so that you can negate those negative effects that shooting at a long range. Perception is used for overall accuracy and accuracy to hit things. So if you just want to use a submachine gun and shoot someone in the face, perception is all you need. You won't need very much focus. Yeah, so that's pretty much those ones. Strength is used for... That's what I'm trying to find right now. I'm trying to find the actual...
I think it's for, like, equipment load and whatnot, right?
Finding it right now.
There's another... The trait that I decided to take increases equipment and decreases the weight of things.
Yeah, your physical power and general quality of health. Primarily used to determine how large a weapon and how heavy an outfit you can efficiently use. Also determines how resilient you are in combat. Another thing for melee characters might be movement as well. So reflexes, movement, and strength are your 3 focus there. Movement, if you have a high movement, it basically means you can fucking book it. You can cruise across the battlefield really quick. So if you want to be like up in someone's face with a sword all the time, movement and probably reflex might be really good to have. And if you want to be a bruiser, you know, someone who punches dudes and can take a lot of damage and basically be a tank, strength and movement might be the way to go, with a little bit of reflex. But these points are generally up to you. And a lot of the time, you might be able to find that the traits will be able to help you more than you think. So take a look through the traits, find something that can help, and yeah, that's generally it. Sorry, my throat is getting really dry right now. All right, so do you guys have any questions about the traits or anything like that?
No.
Because you get one trait at the start, and it's pretty hard to pick.
Do any other races have a negative to an attribute?
Yes,
Is it just the...
every single race will have really high negatives. Like, for example, the Nephilim. And if you take a look at the character page of your character class, race, sorry. My Nephilim, he gets 1 physical, 1 engineering, and 1 exotic trait. Point. He gets +1 to all spare time rolls, +1 to recover. He gets to pick between High Zion or Primal Zion as an extra language spoken. He has a -2 to conversation and -2 to culture. So if I was to pick culture and conversation as a primary trained stat, then I would be at 0. No, I'd be at -1 with those.
Okay.
So, you know, it's rough. Like, your character is pretty much sandwiched into a way that they're playing, and they do this by the traits. So,
Okay.
yeah. So the Legion, for example,
I have a -2 to movements.
you have a
Kaltoran's
-2 to movement. Yeah.
Kaltorans have a -2 to focus.
So basically, you don't want to go long-range sniper with a Kaltorian, for example.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if focus actually relates to science as well. Like, that's a good question. I haven't really looked into that too much.
I don't believe it does.
One of the intellectual ones or sciencey ones lets you do analyze. And just to... That was the thing I told you about earlier. Analyze is a combat move that you guys could potentially do in the future. And if you successfully analyze someone, you roll like an int roll or something against their defense. The next time you do critical damage, you get to -1 or +2 to your roll. That determines which attribute hits, essentially.
Nice.
So if you crit, then you get to -1 or +2 to try and hit the attribute you had they're the lowest in. So you can basically do a killing shot with analyze is the
Yeah.
theory there.
And if my character is correct, I get my educated trait under intelligence, which is a level 5 one, gives me +2 to analyze skills.
Yeah. So that should, and that's again if we're reading the rules right, which we do not know that we are because there are gaps.
Yeah.
But we believe this is our understanding of what's going on. You would be better able to do that analyze, and then if you do get a crit, which is very likely in a 3d6 system, you only need 1/6, I believe.
Yeah, you need a 1/6. Yeah.
So it's quite likely to get crits.
Yep. The other thing you might want to look at on the character sheet. So the combat in this game is very cover based as well. I thought I'd point that out. So when you're in cover, you cannot get criticaled. That's just how it works. Like if you're behind cover, if you're behind like a pillar or something like that, and someone's shooting in there, you get a 6. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But the moment you're outside of cover, or the moment they flank you, you can get severely fucked up like really quickly. So a lot of the fighting is done in cover or in stealth or whatnot. So melee characters might have a particularly hard time. The only way that you could maybe fix that is to increase your endurance. And the way that you increase your endurance is strength. So if you have a high strength, it is your endurance starts at 10. It takes your strength modifier or the level, and it times it by 5, and that is your endurance. So if you have,
Oh wow.
yeah,
One of the things that he recommended in one of his videos, the maker of Fragged Empire, whose name I didn't bother to learn because I'm a horrible person, I guess.
I think it's Wade, if I remember correctly from my emails.
He said that, and again, I'm not yet hip on all of the combat rules, but his suggestion for melee characters was about movement, because there's something in the, there's no hard fast limit on moves. So theoretically, you could move from cover to attack, and move back to cover before. Then there wouldn't be any attack of opportunity, for example.
That's true.
But I'm not aware of which stat or which traits allow your character to move more. Just that is a secondary option to just being tanky.
So if I remember correctly, movement is done by, let's see here. So you can move. So it's done on a grid, right? So this is why we need combat maps and stuff like that. So if you want to do a strike is a move attack. So you can move in, hit, and move out back into cover. And a move attack will do a -2 to your move. So if you had a high move, I'm trying to work out what the movement rate is again, because I saw it before and I told Graham about it, but I don't remember where it was. Do you remember, Graham?
No, I of course have since forgotten.
Let's see here.
The only thing you can count on Graham for is to bring joy into your life.
Which he does every day of my life.
Every day.
Every single day.
The best part of waking up is Graham in your cup.
What?
Sounds a
Okay.
little sexual.
I mean, if you guys want to take it there, I'm not putting it there. You guys are taking it there.
All right, so
where's-
how do we want to do this character creation?
So pick some points you want to. Think about your character, and then think about where you want your character to go.
Yeah, we're just babbling on about rules so that you have a better opportunity for
Yeah.
allocating these points.
So
With
I
8.
decided.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I've decided what I want to do. I just can't figure out how to get equipment and all that because it looks like the majority of it you just create when you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially use spare time rolls to get it.
So the way that it's going to work in the survival aspect is that you can bring something in for the first session, but then that weapon is going to be lost somehow. Probably.
I mean, I also can't find a actual list of equipment that you can get. and
That
what they
is
cost.
also
There is some.
the one of the problems with the book right now. That sort of stuff is pretty hard to follow. But essentially is you pick a base type of weapon, and then you spend whatever points it requires to make it customized. And that's how you get your weapons that you want.
I would
Well-
also suggest that we have 2 weeks before actual gameplay happens. Some of these more difficult questions, because the book is vague, can be put on hold. They can be shelved. And we can just sort of
Right.
get some of the more basic
So-
parts of...
Caleb, you're going to be the bruiser, right? You're going to be melee. Is that what you're saying?
No, I had planned to be the heavy weapons guy.
Heavy weapons guy.
Okay, so that is under heavy weapons, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would I bother spending time making a weapon when it's going to be... we're not going to have it.
Because since I have a penalty to movement, being a melee character probably isn't a good idea.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, think about a weapon you want, Graham, and
I
then
know it.
and then
You can have any weapon you want. You're not going to keep it past the first... It's not going to cost you anything to have it either. I'm not going to make you spend anything from character creation to have this particular
Yeah.
thing. Whatever thing you want to have it. You're not going to keep it. I'm telling you that. I could not tell you that and be a douche, but I'm not doing that.
yeah.
There's no possible way we could keep what we have.
You can't keep it. It may be recoverable,
Okay.
but I can't
Did we
go into
come
more
to a
detail.
consensus on the lightsaber?
It doesn't sound like technology exists. It sounds like there's something vaguely similar,
Yeah.
but isn't.
Think
not
of it like an
contained
energy
plasma.
burn weapon, or a weapon that's really hot, for example, and that's basically what they have in here.
Yeah, think of it more like a sword that turns on to do heat damage, as opposed to a handle that produces, magnetically contained plasma or whatever a lightsaber is.
Yeah.
And I think I'll just have a sword.
You are welcome to have just a sword.
Sword.
Can I have like 2 swords from the same hilt that are parallel to each other? That'd be pretty cool.
Like a
Yes.
staff weapon, something like that.
But
No, I think he's describing the.
like in the same direction.
Oh, okay.
I-
I've never seen one of those before.
Wait, what do you? Hold on, I want to get a handle on this. What do you?
Well, what popped into my head was if you have a sword hilt, and then normally there's one blade that comes out. What if you had 2 that were right next to each other?
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. You can have that. I thought you were describing like the thing that Zuko
Like a
has
double.
in Avatar,
No.
with
All
a
right.
sword that splits in the middle, and then you have 2. But
So,
that's no, what
Caleb-
you're describing is totally cool and fine.
So
Okay.
Caleb, let me explain how you get your weapon. So right now, the heavy arms consist of grenade, a satchel, a cannon, an autocannon, and a chemical thrower.
Yeah, I'm looking at auto cannon because that seems to be what I was thinking.
So
of.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like one of those big heavy machine gun type weapons.
So on hit, it's a -6. I'm not sure what that means. I guess that means from your total die pool, you take 6 away, because it's more of a spray and pray sort of weapon, rather than a precise one. You get 3 plus rate of fire. So when you roll, every time you roll, you will roll with 3 extra die to hit someone.
Okay.
Yep. Your crit is 4. So I'm not sure what that crit number actually means. I'm gonna have to look into that.
So it's on a D6,
it's also
right? So it's a 4 and above is a crit.
No,
No.
I think just a 6 is a crit.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: you only need 1 6 on one of the dice for you to have a crit, so you will.
And if you hit
Um,
more than 1 6, you can do it multiple times.
And the
Then
other
what's
thing-
the 4 mean for crit?
What about 4?
It just says crit 4.
It
I'm gonna
says
look
crit
into it.
4.
Again, it's one of those things. It's just like, yeah.
Wait, is that how many types of? Because there aren't crits, there are strong hits,
Yeah.
and you get special things that are strong hits. So I think maybe that crit 4 is you have 4 of them, or you have 4 slots for them. But I don't know. I don't know.
The
But
autocannon, for example.
one thing you do need to cover is that those 3 extra dice you get for it being an automatic weapon cost you 3 extra ammo.
Yeah.
Because you actually have to track ammo in this game. And what happens is it lets you add 3 extra dice to your 2 hit. It costs 3 extra ammo, and you only can hit once in a turn no matter what. So it's essentially the concept is if I fill an area with enough bullets, I will hit.
Yeah.
But I do actually have to fill the area with bullets,
Yeah.
and therefore not have those bullets anymore.
Which is why I was also going to look into the. It said you can make a weapon have infinite ammo, quote unquote.
Yeah.
There's something about
think
that in here
so.
somewhere. There's some
Infinite
sort of
ammo, and it costs extra resource points to actually get in the actual survival.
in survival
Yeah.
to have the infinite ammo weapon, which I assume is flavored as a weapon that constructs its ammo as it fires, because it's a future or whatever, some sort of
Yeah.
self-replicating ammunition. But yeah, that's going to cost you more in this setting because it's survival.
So,
Okay.
and then you take your weapon, for example. So, let's say you pick just a cannon because it's cheaper, it's easier to roll for. Let's see. You take your cannon, and then you go down to gun variations, which is page 194, and then you can add additional variations to it. Now, the cost comes through your spare time rolls. So the cost on the side there is it takes. I'm not sure what the plus means. So, okay, so cost spare time roll hit of 14. So you need to spend X amount of spare time die in order to roll enough to hit 14, in order to get that modification of the irradiated to your cannon. But if you do pass it, you will get an extra damage. It'll be harder to hit, but you'd also do an extra crit damage as well. So that's basically what that means. And then if you scroll even further down, you can get shell variations on what it does. And then on top of that, you can get chemical variations. And you can get gun size variations. Like, you can basically add anything you want to your guns in order to customize it. That's how the game makes, like, special weapons and stuff like that. So instead of it being like, oh, you got a sword that's +2, it's basically, you got a sword that is chemically radiated. So when it hits people, they get sick. Like, that's pretty much what it does in this game. But we can go into weapons later, because weapons are incredibly difficult, and even I have to get my head around it. So,
It's minutia, but it's good to have it in mind.
yeah.
You can eventually have a heavy weapons guy who never runs out of ammo, so you get to roll all of your dice all the time.
So basically, the way that it works in the game is, at the end of the session, I assume maybe even before the end of the session, we will do something for someone, and then we will get resource, or we will get influence. So it might just be the case of, hey, by the end of the first session, you got 2 resource points by your actions in the game. So you can spend the 2 resource points on getting a weapon, like, say, a cannon, that you can keep on your character at all times. And then after the session ends, you can take your time points, and then you can start modifying that thing. If you fail, that's all right, because you will get more time points later to use at the end of the next session to see if you can modify it again. So basically, every time we play, the way that you level up is not by leveling up. It's by getting resource points through your actions in the game to spend on better gear. That's essentially what it means. Jacob, your camera went down, by the way.
Oh no, I completely froze for a few seconds there.
Okay.
He's back.
So,
No worries.
if you guys have thought about what you want to do in terms of character creation, we can move on to that now. And actually put some points down. So, what have you guys thought about? Remember, you have 17 rather than 18 because of the
14.
survival.
Yeah, 14.
Oh, sorry, 14. Yeah.
I decided to go 4 in strength, 2 in reflexes, 3 in movement, 2 in focus, 1 in intelligence, and 2 in perception.
That's pretty
Which is
good.
yeah, my movement's going to be 1, but yeah.
Yeah. So also remember, if you move and you're not doing melee anymore, so it doesn't matter, I guess. So
Someone is though.
Yeah, someone is. Who's doing the melee stuff?
Graham.
Graham. Yeah.
So far,
Yeah.
two of our people have not discussed how they will approach combat.
I'm probably going to be ranged, but probably a shit shot.
You're actually gonna be like full on like hardcore range, or you're just gonna be like small arms?
Small arms.
Okay, that's fine. As long as you have perception, then you'll be able to hit things.
Well,
I think I'm gonna be very basic. Like I'm just gonna be very charismatic. I'm more of a social person, but I'm just gonna go with a basic pistol. So.
Or you can go with like a
combat skills.
You can go with like a like an auto fire pistol, for example.
Okay.
So if you want to hit with that, that's simply perception. And I would suggest reflexes as well because that can help you alleviate combat die.
Okay.
So the way that works is, let me just pull that up real quick. Alright, so your speed of your physical response to your environment, flexibility, and generability. Primarily used to avoid being hit, and your melee proficiency. So it might be a good idea that maybe you have like a knife and a pistol, for example. So if people get in your face, you can get up in their face too. Like, also the survival variant of this game is going to be like you're gonna have to spend time points on finding ammunition. You're gonna have to spend time points on finding water and food, and so a lot of the time your time points aren't going to be very useful for like upgrading stuff unless you want to, not eat or drink or like not find ammo. So this is where it's going to come down to it. You're going to have to make the hard choices on what you want to do. So it might even be a case of like this game is being played by the fact that we don't have a lot of access to like guns and stuff. So maybe that's something to think about when you make your character. I think Graham will probably have an easier time out of everyone. Not Graham. Yeah, Graham's the melee, right? Yeah, you're the melee. So you might have the easier time when it comes to spending time points because you can spend it on other things like finding food, which would be very useful. So what has everyone else thought about their points? Where they're going to
Is armor the same as weapons where you can craft it the way you want it?
Yes. Okay. Yes, it is.
Let's say I'm going... Tentatively, right now, I'm 1 strength, 2 reflexes, 2 movement, 3 focus, which will functionally be 1, 3 intelligence, and 3 perception.
Very nice.
11, 13, 14. This 14 buy is very strict.
It is pretty strict, yeah.
Dave, what are your points like?
I have to realign them because I had mine set to 18, but I'm looking at 2 strength, 3 reflexes, 1 movement, 1 focus, 5 intelligence, and 2 perception, probably.
You gotta have a lot of 1s to get that 5.
You do, yeah, but,
Very spoopy.
Very spoopy, indeed.
Strength and focus. That -2 to focus is really hurting.
Yeah, it is. Like that's something that's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
Why is there a -2 to focus? Is that a racial trait?
Yes,
yeah.
racial.
Does everybody have -2 to an attribute?
No.
No,
Yeah.
isn't it to the maximum? not the actual trait itself.
Yeah, it's a maximum, so you can only go to 3.
So yeah,
So,
so
yeah,
like,
it's not -2 to
it's not
start.
like yeah, it's not
Oh.
-2 to start. It doesn't mean you have
Oh.
to put 3 in it to have
Oh.
1. It means
Oh.
you just can't go to 5 in that trait.
It
Oh.
literally
Oh,
means
is that what it is?
you don't have any access to the top 2 traits of that trait,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay, I misread everything then. So
I
that
misread that as well. Then.
Everyone misread everything. Don't worry. So
Misread
far,
everything, yeah.
literally
Okay.
none of us have a clear grasp on the system.
Can I suggest / ask, Dave? Can you kind of like? Do you have a pretty good idea of how you're going to build your character?
Yeah.
Can you sort of take us through the walkthrough, and we can, because like
Yeah, that's
there's
what I'll
a
do.
lot
So
being
once
thrown,
everyone-
and I'm semi confused.
Once everyone has their attributes picked, then we'll go
Alright.
through and we'll apply all the stuff that happens to a character after the attributes
Wow.
are picked.
Okay, mine are sort of tentative because I don't.
That's fine.
sort of
Like, just
understand
put
where
something
they should
down
go,
for
but I
now, and then once you've
Okay.
seen the rest, you can go back and change it later. Once you know.
I'm
what
not
you want.
I'm not gonna crucify you to what you do today. We've got 2.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
You know,
With the way combat works, wouldn't everybody just have 2 in everything besides 2 choices, which are 3?
yeah, that's
So
what I was
it's
saying
3.
earlier. Like
It's very limited. But-
because of the random way in which fatal damage is dealt. If you wanted to build a character, the tankiest character is the one that is the least specialized. That doesn't mean the best character. It just means tankiest. As
Well, no.
opposed to saying-
If you play the game right, the tankiest character is the one with the highest endurance.
well, right, but because there are crits which ignore endurance entirely.
Until you get to the point where you're out of... Like, if you play it smart and you get caught unaware in combat, then, yeah, you're going to get fucked up. That happens to everyone, though. Regardless of how many points you have in any attribute. Like, 5
Right,
is
yeah.
not a lot. Like, a -2 is not a lot. That's like... If you take 7 points to anything, you're dead. That's pretty much it. So, the way you play combat is you stay in cover. And if you don't want to stay in cover, then you better be really good at reflex or have a shitload of endurance, because the chance
Be
of you...
incredibly lucky.
Yeah. So that's the way the game is played. So,
Yeah, I'm going to try really, really hard not to kill you guys at the first encounter.
it
but
basically
I
means that you need to
have
build
no
like
idea.
battle maps that actually have cover in it. Otherwise, we just
Well,
won't
yeah,
get
I mean, I can
fucked
do
up.
that.
Yeah.
There will be cover. But cover only increases your defense. It doesn't prevent you from getting hit.
No. It
Um,
literally removes the fact that you can get crit.
Well, right, that too. So,
So you
Um,
can still get hit, and you'll still take endurance damage, but you won't get critical if you're in cover.
right.
That's pretty
So
much
there
it.
were-
That's
I'm
the
Sorry,
important
my
thing.
understanding correctly, like endurance is sort of a hit system, and then you also have like
Endurance
hit
is your
points.
health, right?
So it's like
Oh,
think
okay.
of it like this: endurance is your fatty muscle, and the attributes are your vital organs. Now, the more fatty muscle you have, the more meat I have to cut through to get to the part where I kill you. Unless I'm a crack shot and I hit you in the belly button, which goes straight to your heart.
Yeah, because
That's
everyone's
how
going to
it
be
works.
wearing full armor aside from like the midriff.
And every point in strength is equal to 5 endurance, right?
Correct. Yes.
Well,
So you start off with 10 endurance. And then after that, it's every point of strength is 5 endurance.
alright.
So you could have a maximum of 60 endurance, basically.
Okay.
And if you manage to get to 60 endurance, fucking tops, man.
No, wait, it'd be 35, wouldn't it?
I'm at 35.
Oh yeah, 35. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I counted
Yeah.
as 10 for each one. Yeah, 35. Yeah.
10, 15, 20.
Where is that? Oh.
So I guess so I guess since I misread it, that doesn't mean that's -2 focus.
No, it just means you can only go to 3 in
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah, I completely misread that, so I'm taking 1 point out of that and just putting it into intelligence.
Okay. Excellent. So now that has everyone feel like they got their points down good?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
mine are fine.
Okay, so the next thing you need to move on to is your skills. Oh, also in the fate thing, put -1 in the circle next to it.
Unless you're
No,
Or
everyone
just-
puts -1 in there.
You don't
Okay.
have -1 fate points. You have 1 less.
Yeah, but Kaltorans have +1.
Yeah.
So you have 0.
Zero,
Right.
zero.
2 plus 0 is equal to 2. That's why I was going to say Kaltorans don't take that. And, what's your company?
Corporation's gonna have
Corporation.
0 total.
Yeah, so Corporation puts -2 into Fate.
That's right, yeah. Just in the circle, not in the hexagon. And then you can,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't mathematically do it right now, so you're just going to have to just put it in there. So, all right, so we'll talk about traits in a minute after you've worked out what's going on here. So, the way that skills work is that you get 6 points to put into trained skills over professional and everyday. You get 2 points to put into vehicle systems as trained, and you get 2 points to put in personal combat skills as trained. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take your character's racial traits and we're going to apply them to your skills. So let's start from the top. The corporation. You have +2 maximum resource and influence. So you need to go back to the top of the page.
Okay.
And then you need to put max resource. You need to put 0 for each of those.
Yeah, I'm basically canceling out the survival, correct?
Yes, correct.
Wait.
Okay, cool.
You still start with 0, but
Yeah.
you don't. Yeah. Is it? Hang
But
on.
my
Is it max? What?
No, you just start with 0.
Okay.
The math is not affected by survival.
All right. So yeah, everyone needs to change that. Sorry, my bad. I completely fucked that up.
Oh, so I actually have a total of +2.
Can I change? No, you can't change it. So you need to actually put -2 in there. So it's kind of annoying. Your maximum pool is your level, though. So if you wanted to
Level
change
plus.
that, it's weird. They don't have a space for it. So you just need to remember that you have an additional maximum resource. So you can go to 4. So basically, when resources are given out, you can hold on to 4, and we can only hold on to 2 until we level up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't you just put level +2 then? And the maths resource and maths influence?
Because that changes your total that you have. Oh, I guess.
It just says maths. It doesn't say how many you have.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So everyone just put 2 in there then. Sorry, my bad. Oh no.
Corporation.
No,
+2.
everybody would have 0. I would have 2, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, cool.
So right now we have a maximum of 2 resources that we can have,
Okay.
and you have a maximum of 4, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And he starts with 1 resource and influence.
Yeah, so you gain 1 resource and influence, which means that just because you're wealthy, you have access to something that we don't. So
Okay.
you can purchase 1 thing, and yeah, so you need to write that down on a piece of paper. Actually, right next to it, there is there's some
Like a
boxes
notes
there.
section.
Yeah, so you can just type whatever you want in there.
Okay, cool.
So now that you have that, you need to scroll down to skills, and you need to add 1 to wealth, 1 to operations, and 1 to tactical. So
Okay,
wealth is the
on-
very first one. So the way that this works is there is 2 checkboxes inside the circle rectangle thing. Yep. So the first box is where you put whether it's trained or not. So in the second box, you need to put a 1 for wealth.
Oh.
You need to put a 1 for operations. And what was the
Okay.
last one? And 1 for
Tactical.
tactical. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
What are perks and complications?
I'll tell you where to put them in a second.
Yeah, we'll just take step by step. It's easier
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So the next is you gain a language called corporation. Now if you scroll to the very
Yep.
top, it has languages.
Mhm.
Just put in corp
that.
there.
Cool.
Now you get -1 fate. So you've already done that, right? You've applied your -1 fate. So you would have -2 fate, for example.
Yeah, because we have 1 because it's survival,
Yep.
and -1 because I'm corporate.
So you'd have 0 fate.
Yep. Okay.
You take away 2 maximum strength, so you can only go to 3 in your strength pool.
Yep.
And now you have a complication, prejudice from Kaltorians.
Yeah.
So if you scroll down to page 3, I believe it is, under current influence, you have perks and complications. So you can put it in there on one of those lines there.
Okay.
Yeah.
below, right?
Yeah, it's got like a checkbox there that you can put text in. So just copy
Okay.
exactly what it says there.
All
And
right, cool. Good.
now, I hope is everyone following along with this, by the way? Kind of?
Yeah.
Yep. So now you need to pick 6 skills to get trained in. So the way that trained skills work in this game is if it's not trained, it's a -2 automatically to that skill. You can still try and do it in the game. It just means that the difficulty check of the skill is going to be harder for you because whatever you roll, you take away 2 from that roll. And if it still doesn't meet if it meets it before the removal of the -2, and then you remove it, you don't pass it basically. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So what this training does, it removes the -2 and it adds a +1 to it. So you can only pick 6 though. So for example, wealth would be a good one for you because you would be a +2 in your wealth checks. So that whenever you do a wealth check, you would be +2 instead of -2, which is like great.
Yeah.
So you can pick 6 from everyday and professional, but you can only pick 6 from those. So, for example, my character, I picked wealth, physical, resolve, awareness, biotech, and medicine.
So
Okay.
anything that is otherwise blank
It's
would
going to
have
be a
-1.
-2. And if you're playing the cat people, it's -1. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But anything
Asterisk.
that has a number, like if there's 1 in the like
Yeah,
it's
so
mechanics,
basically
whatever.
that's why you have the 2 boxes. The first box is for whether or not it's trained, and the second box is from your racial stuff and trait stuff that you get.
Right.
So the second box, for example, my particular one is I don't have conversation or culture trained, so it's a -2 because it's not trained, and then in the second box it's -2 because of my racial stuff. So when I roll for a conversation check, it's a -4. Yeah.
Basically, you're insulting their mother every time you talk.
Well, basically, it's more like prejudice than anything. They just don't want to listen to anything I have to say because I'm a Nephilim.
Your racial skills, those don't count as trained, right?
No, they don't. They only count towards the total. So you have to train them
just-
if you want them.
Yeah.
So, for example, if Philip doesn't train wealth, it'll be a -1 instead of a -2. But, you might as well play to the race's strength more than anything else. But
Yeah.
you're free to do whatever
Yeah.
you like, so...
Cool.
Yeah, so you get 6 in those, and then once you've picked them... So it should look like, for example, 1 plus -2, or 1 plus 1, or 1 plus nothing, or -2 and -2, or -2 and nothing. That's what it should look like. And then you'll get your total next to it, which is good. Now, if you see the primary skills, they only have 1 trait box. It's the same thing that applies to the traits on the attributes. You can only pick 1 at a time for it, and as Wreckage said, you can use the time points to realign them, I guess, for the most part.
Oh, but I want to mention also that vehicle and personal combat skills, both you get 2 traits per thing.
That's right, yes. I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Now, there's checkboxes next to these trained skills. Do you see them? They say like multi-box, toolbox, workshop, and D-workshop.
Yeah.
So if you have access to a toolbox, for example, and you're a mechanic, that will give you bonuses to your check. So that's basically what that means. And for
Okay.
everything that you have access to, then your check will go up by +1. So if you have a multi-tool and a toolbox at your disposal, and you want to disassemble a door, and you have one point into mechanics, and then you're also trained in mechanics, then your check will be a +4.
Okay.
If you say have access to a workshop, you can't obviously take the door back to the workshop, but if you wanted to say take apart a radio or something like that, then if you had access to a workshop, a toolbox, a multi-tool, and you had 1 point in electronics and you were trained in electronics, then you would have 5 points basically to roll with. So the more assets you have to help you with whatever you're doing, then that will help as well.
Workshops can also take many forms. For example, a actual physical business is considered a workshop for a corporate who wants to do like roles on wealth and stuff. A med bay would be a workshop for Dave's character. So workshop does not mean literally workshop. It's more of a
designed
overarching-
place for you to do your role to help you. Basically.
It's a place for you to do your spare time roles,
Yeah.
Okay.
which helps you based on the nature of your character in specific flavorings and 3 designer colors.
Yeah. So each of these things have a trait as well, and I believe every time you level, you get an extra trait.
Yep.
And the way that you level in this game is if you survive 3 sessions, you get a level. That's pretty much it.
What?
There is no XP.
Oh, yay.
But you get XP by like resources and stuff, so it's the same thing, really.
So, do you get any of these skill-based traits?
You can, for example, you can forsake your attribute traits and pick one of these traits right now on the skill-based traits if you wanted to.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, you take a look after the show's done at the traits. Jacob, your camera's down again.
Oh, wait, it is?
Yeah. And then you can go through and pick something that might be useful. Having known that we're playing a survival variant, I'll probably change my character quite a bit. So now go down to vehicle skills, and each of you should have put your racial stuff in there. I believe that each of you should have 1 vehicle and 1 personal combat racial trait. So now you get to pick 2 from the vehicle subsystems to be trained. So, for example, the vehicle system skills is directly related to spaceship crewing. So if you scroll down to page 4, I believe it is, you can take a look at the very bottom of page 4. You can take a look at the system skills for a spaceship. My character right now has a +1 in operations and a +2 in engineering. So if I was to sit on a spaceship, when combat starts on a spaceship, you pick where you're going to sit and what subsystem you're going to man. So, for example, if I sit in engineering, these are the skill roles that I have access to. And that's basically what will happen with the spells. With combat. And if you're in operations, you will go first, followed by engineering, followed by command, followed by gunnery. So depending on which trees you want to go down, I would suggest picking something that is within your race so that you get a bonus. But then you can pick anything else you wanted on top of that. But I don't know how useful this is going to be in this particular game that we're running. But give it some thought either way.
Well, only one of those is trained, or 2 of those are trained.
2 of those are trained, so you can pick 2 skills from that. And notice how in this one, you have 2 traits that you can pick from this tree. So you can put 2 different traits into, say, engineering, and then you will get access to both of those traits rather than to just one of them.
Great.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So you can put both points in? Did I do that correctly?
No, you only get 1 trait at level 2.
No, you
Oh,
you
no,
get
no.
2
Oh,
traits,
no.
what he's saying.
No, I misheard something else. I thought you said something entirely different.
You can train 2 skills in vehicle and 2
Yeah.
skills into personal combat. So
Yeah.
I just looked, and they don't have traits for the vehicle and personal combat stuff.
Yeah.
Or they don't have the traits for the vehicle stuff out yet. So
yeah. So this is a beta
Yeah.
game that we're playing. So a lot of it is missing. A lot of it doesn't have like details on it, but yeah.
Mhm.
Just know that they affect your rolls, and right now the traits we couldn't pick them even if we wanted to. So,
Yeah.
but you know they're there.
Same thing with personal combat, too.
Yep, you pick 2 of those, and so if you're going to go melee, exotic is what you want.
But I couldn't put 2 in exotic, right?
No. You can only
Yeah.
pick 2 skills to train into. So for my character, I picked small arms and tactical. Simply because he will want a personal weapon, and he will also want probably to do drone-related stuff later on. But because he's a Nephilim, he has a 1/2 exotic by default, even though I didn't pick it. And exotic is like melee and strength-based stuff, and I'm just not rolling my character to be like that. So instead of a -2, he gets a -1 in any exotic checks that he makes. So you don't necessarily have to play to the strengths of your character, but it's probably a good idea if you want to get all the bonuses. So. And again, personal combat skills come with 2 traits, so, you know. And, yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about creating a character in terms of mechanical stuff.
Okay. Done.
Yeah. So we will also get to roll for equipment, but as the only person here who will be able to keep his equipment is Philip. So just think about the type of stuff that you'd be wearing on a cruise liner in space. And that's basically the type of gear that you should bring with you.
I say I would have weapons and whatnot because
Yeah.
mercenary.
Yeah, so
You will have them.
Yeah.
Things will happen. Then
Yeah.
you won't have them.
Yeah.
I have an idea. No.
So how would you suggest that Philip keeps his stuff? Because he actually does have resources available to him.
In his
It will
butt.
be explained, and I will handle that. And I mean, I can't go into more details, or you'll learn how you lose your stuff.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
I was asking about perks and what are they called?
Complications?
Complications.
Yeah.
Because there's a mercenary trait that says I gain those from increasing resources instead of influence. And I was wondering what that exactly does for the character.
Say it again.
Um,
What page is
I
that on,
think
by
what
the
he's
way?
talking about is
It's near the end.
I think what he's talking about is that one of the things he talks about in the influence tree is that as you gain influence, certain groups start liking you and certain groups start hating you. And I think what he's just saying is that when you're a mercenary, instead of influence causing that,
Yeah, it's
resources causes that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. So, like, if you have, like, really cool gear on your dude, it basically means that everyone sort of, like, sees you as a really cool mercenary, I guess, and their respect for you goes up and down based on that. So, for example, if you use chemical weapons, maybe the people who are okay with chemical weapons see that as, like, holy shit, this guy's well-equipped, maybe we should hire him. And the people who think chemical weapons are bad will probably, you know,
Not like you.
not like you, yeah.
It's
So-
sort of like how in Star Wars, you know, you don't need to know who Boba Fett is by name, because when he rolls up in a joint, he's got that, you know, he's wearing that special helmet that only the people of his race wear, and all of them are mercenaries or whatever. And so he rolls up and he's got that helmet, and you're like, oh shit, this guy can be hired to do business and get the things done and
Yeah.
kill the people.
And kill all the people. So yeah, I see that. So you also get +1 to maximum resources from that. So your resources, if you were to pick that trait, would be 1, and then you would get 3 resources instead of 2. So
I'm
you
considering going with that because that kind of.
In survival, it's
It's
the
my
resources are 0.
I know, but for example,
not
he can
max.
hoard his resources.
Right,
Max
he can have
resources.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he has to get them still in survival. You still have to get them.
Yeah. So at the start,
Okay,
like
that one
every
doesn't
other.
have to be chosen in the character creation, so I might grab that later.
Yeah.
All right.
Do I look just
Outcast.
ahead?
Damn.
Yeah, you do look
Yes.
like just a... If that's the effect you're going for, you've nailed it. Congratulations.
Spooky.
I had another idea. Me and Jacob, I imagine this sword is like a family heirloom, and we share that ancestor who it came from.
Do you want to know each other, or do you want to meet in... Like, that's something guys can discuss.
Yeah, we'll discuss this later.
Yeah, just an idea.
Yeah.
One of the things you could also do, and I don't know if you're planning on doing this, Rec, but start off with 0 resources. Maybe the gear that we had brought in with us, up to our maximum resource count, gets taken away, and then maybe it's like, well, if you do all this stuff for us, maybe we'll give it back to you, sort of thing.
Like I said, it may be recoverable. The specific urine involved may be recoverable, but I can't go into any sort of.
I just heard you say urine, and I just smiled. I'm sorry.
Can't I smuggle things in my butt?
Well, here's the thing.
Listen.
When you get resource points, you can say however the hell you want you got the thing that you got. So you can say that you smuggled it in your butt, and you brought it with you, but now you started to use it because you thought the time was necessary.
But would butt stored goods survive this?
It doesn't matter. You need the resource
I think
points
if your
in order to do
butt
it.
survive, like I think if you survive, your
If
butt
No,
necessarily has to
Only his
also
butt
survive.
needs to survive. We can get the stuff out of his butt later.
Right.
The
So
event is not going to take your butts from you. You will still have butts at the end of the event, presumably.
I mean,
So
can I
but also,
do it however you want, but all it means is that once you have the resources, you can get the gear. No matter, as long as you have the resources, you can get the gear however you want.
If you lose this precious family heirloom, but you still want a two-bladed sword, and you get the resources, you can say, in lamentation for losing my two-bladed sword, I went out and I built a new two-handed sword that will replace that two-handed, but never really replace it. Just it fills it only partially fills a void, and
You
the
create
rest of the void can
world's
only be
first
filled with
3D printer, and then
alcohol.
you remake it. Yeah. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about character creation. I suggest you guys look at the traits, find something that you want to roll with. Probably something like if you wanted to really game the system, and I'm sure maybe Wreckage could overlook this, but like if you can get resource points, that's probably a really good thing to have in a survival game at the very beginning, at least. So that's up to Graham. Up to Wreckage whether or not he wants you to do that, though. But it's turned out that Philip has them anyway from his character creation, just by default, without picking any traits. So
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll see what
yeah, the other thing
Wait,
you might
why-
want to look at just.
what character trait gives him resources, out of curiosity.
Do you remember what
It's
that
just no, it's just my racial.
Your racial, but what does it say?
starts off
What
with
do you mean
one
exactly?
resource and one
Yeah,
influence?
it literally just says I start with 1 versus everybody else who starts with 0.
So if
So
we were to
I
play a
mean,
normal game,
in the
he would have
context-
3, and we would have 2 in a normal game. But since you start with 0, then
In
Well,
the context of your story, I would assume that it could still mean that after this event takes place, I would have 3 and they would have, or I would have 1 and they would have 0.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the survival start with 0 resources and influence may override starting with 1
let's
on
have
your
a look
racial
at
trait.
that.
I don't.
Because what it says is start with 0 resources and influence.
But
And
also
then
with
he
the normal.
says start with 1 additional. Does it say 1 additional resource,
But
or does
then
it say 1 resource?
it says 1 resource. But then if we started standard, that would mean corporation would somehow be poorer than everybody else.
Yeah, because with 2 it says start with 2 resources and influence. So are you sure it doesn't say 1 additional?
Hold on, I'm
It
looking it up right
says. It says
now.
gain 1.
+2 maximum resources, gain 1 resource and influence. So gain meaning plus whatever I don't have, or whatever I already have, rather.
Oh, gain. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
then that's
gain.
important. So if you select, yeah, so if that's the one, then you gained it at character creation. So that's opposed to start. So you do have 1 resource and influence at the start of the game just by being corporation.
Rerolls a corporation. Everyone's a
Well,
corporation.
I mean, you guys, you'll have to figure, like, just wait. It's 2 weeks away. Then you'll find out all
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
It'll be almost immediately apparent what's going on.
Okay. No, I trust you, man. You've come up with some good stuff in the past, so just
Yeah.
don't.
all of
don't
your
fuck
goods
me.
are vaporized instantly.
Yeah. Or your butt, but your butts survive.
Your
That's
butts
it.
are okay.
Your butts
If
are
you
okay.
preemptively put anything in your butt, it's okay.
You just might not be able to
Can I
achieve it
roll
for
for
a
the
while.
size of my butt, please?
Yeah.
Your character's
Do I
We are
skinny,
not
so like.
playing Fatal. We are not playing Fatal.
Do we need to roll for orifice size?
No, please, no.
That's adjustable.
Yeah, it is
It's
adjustable.
Spend your time points to work out how adjustable it is.
Yeah. What is? Can we call the designer and ask him what the butt size of the Kaltorans is?
I'll ask him for you.
Well,
on personal records.
I mean, okay. Well, so basically, you take so spare time roll to increase the size of your butthole. You're gonna
Oh
need
my god.
a
Okay,
dildo
yes.
tool
Write it down.
and a BDSM chamber as a workshop.
Yeah, workshop. Right.
I'm not
Right.
helping with this.
Noted.
You guys are hilarious. I don't know why I said it like that. But, yeah.
Um,
All right, so
yeah.
Grant, Records, did you have anything else to cover? Because I think that pretty much covers everything we need to start the
I think
session
that's
next
a
week.
good first session.
Yeah.
We have a total of like maybe 2 people watching the stream, which is great.
Well,
Excellent.
I'll talk to Wade because he was supposed to put out a thing today, but
But uploading it to YouTube, that's where we'll get our real views, maybe, hopefully, theoretically.
maybe.
We'll start to bring in once Lokes, Nevada goes on air, we're gonna bring in the big viewers.
Oh yeah.
In one
we got-
month.
I've got another Halloween special I'm working on that we can
Perfect.
do with various people from Die Party.
I'm game for that.
Yeah, we'll see who can play when it's happening.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll plan that. You know, we're gonna start aggressively marketing Die Party as a cure for male pattern baldness.
TV adverts. You know how it is.
Yeah.
That's if you stay stiff for the entire 4 hours that Die Party runs, please contact your physician.
That's a good sign.
It's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, all this orifice talk has got everyone all hot and bothered now. All right, so we're going to end it there, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with the first session of Fragged Empire, and we'll be able to see all these characters in action. It's going to be great. And
Yeah,
then
see you on the
Wreckage will,
27th.
yeah, Wreckage will probably have a camera. If not, then he will get a more like every episode. Your picture is going to get significantly worse.
You're only encouraging me.
All right. Anyway, guys, that's it. Thank you very much for watching.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Well.
See you guys.
Peace.